This podcast is brought to you by Reimagine Radio, the online radio station that aims to give you information on disability and music. My name's Graham Wyman, and I'm a program manager with the Disability Foundation. Today on Reimagine Radio's Artist Feature, we have the conclusion of my interview with Paul Rigby and Simon Paradis. This interview takes place directly after part 2 of the Artist Feature that was released previously last week.
Mm-hmm. But, I think the cool thing about VAMS, because I really feel like in this instance, it's one of those, if there's a need for it, it becomes the mother of invention. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's the same thing as having car seats that accommodate toddlers. It's you don't actually, when you buy a car as a guy in your early 20s, you don't buy the kid's car seat with the car. You wait until you've had a kid and use the car seat, right?
No, that's
and I think that's what VAMS offers. Is VAMS actually tells venue owners around the city it's time to buy the fucking car seat.
Yeah. No worries, Simon.
You're having kids. It's time to buy the car seat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. And most of the but you know what? It's not even like clubs or even theaters, even like coffee shops and stuff
everywhere.
Like that.
It's everywhere. Yeah. No, it's restaurants. It's no, and it's just it's funny. Again, we've had this shift where we can actually have these conversations, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the nice thing. And then it's not just around disability. It's about, as you were talking, Paul, diversity and inclusion in general, right?
Yeah,
in general, for sure.
It's one of all these different issues that play into this larger issue.
And so many of these things intersect at the arts.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because it's a huge part of just being human is creating art.
Right.
And so you're going to get this swath of people with huge, vast differences in living experiences and how they present and what they think. And, they all deserve a chance to make a little bit of art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My experience... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, in the art that is so individualistic, I fear of the loss of what we're missing out on. In a selfish way, I'm kind of like, well, yeah, how many people are out there making incredible stuff that I'll probably not see just because there's no place for them to do it. Or they don't feel welcomed, at least. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen there's been some, not to bring up memes on Facebook on this recording because that's reductive and reactionary, but there was a meme posted not too long ago that was someone, I forget the name. I'm gonna be like you, Graham. I'm not gonna be as eloquent as the initial
claim
quote.
the grain.
But what he was saying is, I fear the loss of the brains of the people that were equal to Einstein and Bill Gates and people like that died in sweatshops and in mines and labor camps.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people, there's a lot of human misery that gets swirled down the drain that probably could have complemented or contributed to a huge array of different things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what we're talking about is I don't think I'd be very motivated to go see shows. I barely get there now. I'm exhausted all the time, but it's a bit of a rigmarole to get anywhere, I think. And maybe you don't notice it if you're in the chair, but it's an extra bit, and to get there and find out I can't get anywhere in this place, then it's just you know what? I'm not doing it, and I'm certainly not going to play, and I'm, I recognize it's not easy for sure, but if it was made even a little bit easier, it might help people go see shows, or be in shows at least. Because the idea of missing out, that Burning Quan thing was a big deal for me and Richard. It was to see that music was important for me to see. And I can't imagine not seeing that because it changed the whole way I do things, kind of.
Right.
Richard's sonority is a really good example of the effect that the arts can have when presented as an area that being inclusive and having equity as sort of the biggest part of it. You get all the real gems coming through, right?
Mm-hmm. Who was the guy that was in the chair that played almost fusion at the time? He was a percussionist.
Dave Symington. He's the co-founder of VAMS.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
Dave.
that. I
Yeah.
would never have seen that had I not been to a VAMS thing. And that also, I was kind of like, this is crazy good. You
No, I
know,
know.
it blew
Dave's.
my mind.
I recorded two
And there's things that he's doing that, like, musically, I was just like, yeah, that you would only ever do that in your situation. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
the limitations of it provides this fabulous kind of musicality that's unique to the situation.
Yeah, which is
Both Dave and Graham together are a fabulous rhythm section.
like,
Having
that's what I'm
played
talking
with them
about.
on a number of occasions, you guys are like a great rhythm section.
I think of that being lost and never seeing that is such a drag, you know, to imagine that those guys are just going to be in their house somewhere doing stuff and happy doing it, maybe, but it's so important for them to be seen or heard by me anyways, because it also changed things for me. I was like, that's such a weird rhythm to do in this song. You know, I took that and I put it in my pocket, you know?
Yeah, of course.
I was just going to say, no, like Dave, and it's funny, like, luckily I've had the privilege of playing with Dave now for 8 years, and it's like, it is true, Simon, like, and we recorded 2 virtual concerts yesterday, or over the last couple of days, and it's just like Dave and I in this pocket. It's just like, you just don't even need to, like, and it's like with any bass player or any musician that you get comfortable with over a period of time of playing with, but it's just like the anticipations, or even, you know, even between songs we're just joking around, and we can even anticipate when we're gonna just like do little silly things that is just messing around, but our anticipation on it. And no, and Dave is, you know, I've played with a bunch of.
Where do I see these concerts?
They're online. I'll forward you some links. Dave and I have basically been the rhythm section for a lot of the stuff over COVID. So yeah, no, and so another plug. I'll plug the virtual concerts for people who haven't heard our virtual concerts on YouTube. We have a ton of them at Disability Foundation YouTube channel.
Right.
Yeah.
Totes, they're heavy. There's some really good stuff on there, man. It's a lot of fun, and you can only get it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what this whole thing should be about.
Exactly.
Isn't that what we're talking about?
Exactly. Come full circle.
Yeah. So I just wanted to get in one last thing before we wrap up.
Of course.
Is that with regards to the responsibility of venue owners, my experience when I had my injury is when I came back to the coast, I used to play a lot at the Garden Bay pub. And like I was up there, I think, 2 or 3 weekends a month supporting acts and being a part of jams and that type of stuff and being a gun for hire. And the owner, Ron Johnston, when I came home from rehab, he actually built, because it's not accessible, there was no accessible washroom in there. He actually built an accessible washroom outdoors of that pub for me to be able to use so that I could come back and play there.
Yeah.
I mean, he folded it into some other things. Like they have a boat launch there, so it was also like a place where people who were living on their boats could come and shower and stuff like that. But
on his end, I need to get Simon back here somehow.
Well, and
that's the thing, is that when he went to do it, it was all of a sudden, it was a big part of what he was going to do with the design, because he knew somebody in his sphere who was a musician who had just recently become disabled.
Yeah, right.
So, it's funny how it can drive the bus, even if it's, there are constraints about, how am I going to pay for this? This really makes sense economically.
I think even being conscious of it is motion.
Yes.
Just even being able to walk into a place and recognize, like, hey, this place is not accessible for any, like, it immediately cuts it off. If you phone me for a gig, like, hey, let's get together, let's do a show, like, it shuts 10 places out of my mind immediately, and just being aware of it, because I don't know if I was that aware before.
I never knew a person in a wheelchair before I landed in one.
Yeah, you're in a unique position, actually.
I had no idea. I didn't have a friend in a chair. I never went to a school where there was a person in a chair attending that school. Like I had no family members that were in chairs. Yeah. Like I had no idea who I'd become,
Right. Do you remember being conscious of, like, places not being accessible?
Not at all. I might have noticed, sometimes I might have gone into a washroom and thought, oh, that bar there. Oh, I guess that's for somebody to transfer, But other than that, it was just like thresholds, getting to the front door, like any of that stuff. I had no idea.
I think because I did go to school with kids that were in chairs. And I've always been kind of conscious of it, but not uber conscious as I have been. I don't think maybe it's from working with you, but I don't think so. I think it's just a little bit before that. Maybe it's playing theaters that are mobility based,
Right.
walk ramps, right bathrooms, all the stuff. And then when you get into a place that doesn't have that, I think I noticed it a fair bit and kind of log it a little bit in my mind.
Yeah, it becomes a bit ghetto-y all of a sudden, eh? When you go to a venue and you're kind of like, oh, okay, the bathroom's a closet that the chair can't fit through, and and the front door has 3 concrete cast steps I can't get out.
I don't know what in terms of changing washrooms. I don't know how much of an investment is that really.
Oh, dude, it's you're a homeowner. You've done renovations.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And my house it's like that too. Is if I change my bathroom around, odds are we're gonna find something else and it's just gonna snowball into. Yeah, I see with older buildings what that's about. For sure.
Yeah, can you imagine just what the asbestos removal would be in a whole ton of buildings in Vancouver now if you knock down a wall?
Yeah, that is true. I was trying to make this doorway bigger, and now I'm $500,000 in debt.
Right now, City Hall has put a liens on my property for a biohazard.
That is exactly what happened with our house. So yeah, I certainly get that. But I also see when there's a huge apartment building or condominium building built downstairs, I know for a fact that there's a bunch of money allocated towards a public art space to be built. And I was like, maybe there should be another allocation of those funds, because I think the people that are building those places probably have funds to allocate. Another certain percentage of funds, and looking at their local surrounding and being like, hey, what about this place? Is that, if there's a club or something that's used by the public that currently isn't, there odds are you're going to have somebody living in your building that's going to want to utilize that might be in a chair or whatever. That might be an interesting thing. What do you know about that, Graham? You're on the spot now.
Now, I know there's, again, we're going back, if I'm understanding your question correctly, there is, subsidies for buildings and things like that, like grants and things like that. So to give an example, the foundation's moving head offices, and we've gotten 3 different grants for accessible doors, one of them being for a washroom. So there is avenues, but it's not. Again, it's where you need to look, and obviously the Disability Foundation, being the organization it is, it knows what avenues you can go through.
I was gonna say, because you kind of need some serious muscle in terms of the lobby to convince capital to help underwrite for the disadvantaged. It's asking people, we've got a whole lot of people who need help. Would you like to pay to help them? And those questions phrased on the open market can sometimes make people go, hey, I didn't sign up for this.
No.
Yeah.
Well, and it goes down to even something I've been disabled my whole life, but I didn't even know there's certain subsidies, and not I'm talking about subsidies about, for instance, ICBC. If you're disabled, you can get a certain percentage off your insurance. That was something that I never knew of my whole life until I was 27 or 28.
And you know what else you can do? You can actually save all your gas receipts, and you get a rebate on the GST you paid for your gas. You add them all up, and then we'll send you a check to make the amount less that you paid in your GST.
And again, that's just something, and maybe, I don't know, I guess actively I wasn't looking it out back when I was younger, but it's just something that I never knew was there and how long it had been there for.
Yeah, right? Who cares about taxes when you're younger?
No, I know. When I'm 18 years old, no, exactly.
Well, and also, for a person like yourself, Graham, who's you've been a really serious athlete, and you've gotten your degree in Spain, and you've been kind of all over the world, kind of just being a general badass that you're not going to be that person who's all of a sudden going to go, yeah, where can I get some free money because I've got this disability? You don't present that well. It seems to me like your whole life has been I think I'm going to go get this thing done right now.
Right. No, and I think, but part 2 of that, at least for myself and the psychological side of it, was I really wasn't around other disabled people.
Yeah.
That's the other thing as well. Like, I didn't know one person in my elementary, high school life that was in a wheelchair. The only time that it would ever happen would be around if I was going to a conference, a little person conference, where they were trying to genetically figure out what I have, right?
Right.
But no, in that standpoint, I think it's also, again, it goes back to what you guys were talking about earlier about this whole kind of, you know, disabled people being in schools or things like that, right?
Yeah.
So,
And I think it was good for me. I had
Mhm.
people in chairs around me from junior high on.
Mm-hmm. And
And
that was,
I think it made it just acclimatizes you.
well, and that's
It's
the,
just like, okay,
mm-hmm,
you don't
right? And
even.
it's not, there's a whole
Yeah.
thing around the psychology of, and this is a little, I'll probably edit this section out, but there's a psychology on, two little people walking on the same side of a block. One of them will most likely cross the street so that they don't have to interact with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
like a funny
There's
thing.
something
Right?
about that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right.
And that concludes our 3-part interview with Paul Rigby and Simon Paradis. Please stay tuned to Reimagine Radio for other artist features and including our Discover Stories podcast, which focuses on the lives of people with disabilities. Take care and have a great day. And as always, keep that music flowing.